think you can see the difference. See how it looks a little more green? And in the back, look at that. Oh, that's good, because it's picking up the color from the back of it. I'll put a little bit of. This is one of those papers. It's hard to decide which side you want. Happy Saturday, everyone, here on YouTube. Hi, I'm Robin McClendon. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to my studio. Boy, have we had an amazing year. For those of you who may just stumble upon this video for the first time, I'm a mixed media artist. I am a mono printer. I use the gel plate primarily, but that's what we've been focusing on this book. But I have a long tradition of printmaking that goes back 30 years when I taught as an adjunct professor at the Corcoran School of Art. So I come out of a tradition of printmaking, as well as painting, collage, of course, mark making, and I'm also a master book artist. So lots that we do here. We have a lot of fun, and I love integrating all these techniques into new, fun book structures and innovative ways to, work with our art, which is what even got me to writing this book, because I just developed so many techniques over the past decade when I started working on the gel plate, is that I thought, I wanted to share them out in some type of way outside of YouTube. So that was the birth of the book. So we are now on chapter 20, which is eco staining on throwaway gel prints. We're on the last chapter. We've gone through this entire book. It's amazing. We've created our own secondary book art. It's really an artist's book, right? We have just so many beautiful images in here. So we have to finish this up. Oh, look at that, just so good. But every technique is in here. So for those of you who have been going along with the journey with me, you have your own companion book to my gel plate printing book that was published with Schiffer. So isn't that cool? So we're coming down to the end, and this one book is really held up. So we are going to do this technique, which is an easy one, and it's not one that I think is necessarily new to you all, but maybe a reminder, because I think sometimes we can forget how yummy these prints can be. Our off prints, the prints we brayer our, paints onto, maybe ones we make mistakes on, they can really be used to make incredible art. The one that's in the book here was a print that didn't, come off as well. It was only this old wall in this little section here. I had a lot of white going on around it, but I liked it, and so I tea stained it, and it just became just a beautiful piece that I could use back in my art or just frame as it is. So I'm gonna show you a different way to do these tea stained papers, or tea or coffee stain, because you can use tea as well. We all know the spray bottle, so I probably won't do the spray bottle because we're familiar with it. I'm gonna show you a different way that I do to stain my papers right at my desk when I'm not using the spray bottle. But the same mixture that I would make in this bowl, I would then put into the spray bottle, of course, once it cools down. Because I like to make my coffee strong, and I like to make it, I like to activate it with hot water. You don't want to pour the hot water right into one of these plastic bottles because it'll just shrivel down to nothing. But, once it cools down, I will put it in a spray bottle. So let's look at a different way of staining. And like I said, this is probably not new to many of you. It's just a reminder to do this with your prints. So what you want is, I just get cheap dollar store coffee. The cheaper the better, because that stuff that's just dye in here. So you can't go wrong. Or I also like using black tea. Do I have a, yeah. I often just, because I shop at Trader Joe's, I just get the black tea. And what's also interesting about the tea and coffee is that because I'm a researcher and I'm always down many research rabbit holes, tea staining is something that is really ancient. It's been done for hundreds of years. Primarily, it came out of the Asian culture, calligraphy, with a lot of the calligraphic, paintings and stuff, just to put a little tea staining in it to vary the opacities of color and what have you. So it's very interesting that, tea has a rich ancient history, because a lot of times, I get asked the question, oh, well, the acids in the paper, make them non-archival. I'm sure that it's not going to, it's going to add a certain level of deterioration, but so is just the water out of the tap. If you just use tap water in your stuff, you don't have the same problem. If you clean your brushes, you put a little bit of water in your paint, if you're not using a distilled water, you're going to have the same problems. So I don't really worry about that kind of stuff. But a lot of these very, very old documents that were brush paintings with the tea staining are still around. I mean, they're still there. They're still looking amazing. Like anything that becomes of value, you preserve it. So, if it's in a museum and stuff, you're going to have it being preserved. But I just wanted to throw that out there, maybe as a neat little something you didn't know. This is a very ancient and rich tradition of using tea. Probably not coffee so much, but I probably down another rabbit hole I'd find the coffee too. So, and also what was interesting that they liked about the tea is the tea helped strengthen the paper. It added a strength to the paper, which is why they also liked dipping the paper a little bit in tea before they even started painting on it, which I thought was really interesting. So I just wanted to drop that little tidbit out. So we need some strong coffee or just cheap coffee. Today I'm going to use just a metal bowl and spoon. I like this technique. I have some trays, just these little dollar store aluminum trays. I like them because I want them to have various degrees of rusting on them, because this way you can introduce a little bit of rust into your papers without going full into a rusting project. And then I take a lot of this this packaging that you get in or packages or large sheets of newsprint, and I keep these over on the floor. That way, when we start dipping our papers, you just have a place to put them, so they can dry without. I don't like to stack them on top of each other. I just kind of want to put them to the side and let them dry. So I use paper like that, and then you get neat staining on that paper that you can then reuse. I have a bundle of papers. These are things that either I have been off printing, sampling some of my stamps on. These are pieces that we did over the course of the year. So I pulled some of those out. I have another folder here where a lot of the pieces that we did throughout the year are in. I'll pull these out too. So all of these off rolls are good. I'm gonna pull, this is that wet strength tissue and the menu tissue. Here again, this was one that we used to clean up some prints on. So I'll show you how I work with those. So yeah, it's probably enough. We won't get so much stain, but I wanted to show you the kind of things that I'm going to use. And so just things that you would like really literally throw away, I braided off some black. No, let's use this. All these pieces, these are just some where I was over stamping and sampling with stamps. And, we're going to use those. And it's really cool how these will become papers that you can either use in collage, but a lot of times these papers I use as pages inside of my books. If I'm using, I always like to make these sort of longer, narrow books, but they've just become pages that can be inserted in your book. And of course, any variation of it being folded, just become extra pages in the book that are already tea stained that you could collage on. You can use as journaling pages. Why throw that stuff away? And so there we have it. I'm going to show you how I make my mixture, and then we'll go ahead and stain some of these. Okay, so we're back. I have some pretty hot water in here that I just poured in there. about a half a cup of water, maybe 3/4. And pretty strong top on there. Let's see, let's go ahead and get this open. Fresh jar. So I probably use quite a bit. So let's say this is 3/4 cups of water. I'm just kind of measuring, give you an idea. I'm working with tablespoons here. So that was about, let's say 6 tablespoons. I like to make it a nice strong mixture. And then as I weaken, if I want to weaken it, then I can just keep on adding a little bit of water to it to make, you know, lighter mixtures. So what I'm going to do today is I like to do this sort of dipping and pouring method. So I'm going to show you because I want to use this tray. Let me just flip this to this side and put another waste sheet down because that's watercolor paper. It'll pick up the drips as well. So this is just stamped with what am I thinking about? The ink is ink pads, right? Sort of like an archival ink, you know. So it's permanent. It's not going to bleed. So what you want to do is I kind of want to start off by, you can check. I like to check the color, see what I'm going to get, and it's going to start building up in this pan, so it'll go faster. But I like to just kind of get it started. And I'm checking the color too, so I know I like this color. I got to be careful with this paper because it's just copier paper, so it can start tearing on you pretty quickly. So I like to try to keep an end that isn't wet yet. But I mean, already look how that just gives such a beautiful aged look. So we're going to go ahead and put this down over there. And we're going to start getting this build up. But I like this little pour and dip method because it helps me to control. I feel like I get nice even color, but it also will control how much you got going. And I don't like the papers like just sopping wet. It just takes so much longer to dry, and it's you waste a lot of material that way. It's not really necessary. Let's put that down there. It's not necessary to have a whole lot of extra. Oh, this is going to be good. So look, already that black becomes a useful area to work back on top of. It already just looks so good, like just old world. So I'm gonna kind of change up some of the papers. Well, I'll go ahead and put these in here so we can also pour a little bit. I like to be careful with the copier paper because, like I said, it can tear so easily. So it's no need to just put unnecessary stress on it. So I try to keep an area, like this little area is still not completely covered. I can always cover that at the end if I want to. But I think it's good to just have it in your hand so that this mixture is really good. So here's a series of, because these were 3 pieces that I did a lot of brayering on, you know, it becomes something that could be a series in a triptych. I could come back and print on top of these or do other artwork, but they begin to match. You know, great for pages in the book. Now, using, this is the menu tissue, which is pretty strong. What I like to do is I like to sort of ball this stuff up and just start dipping it. And what's cool about this is that it just makes it a lot easier to work with these thinner papers. So you just kind of just keep on opening it up to expose the unstained paper. This has a lot of white paint on it, so it's going to dry really cool. And then just, you know, just press some of the like I said, this is menu tissue, or you can use wet strength. So this is going to hold up a bit to us sort of messing with it. And then I just kind of lay it down there. I don't try to get it completely flat again because I like to see the wrinkles and things in it. I think it really adds to it. And it also helps kind of keep things from being sort of all the same color staining. You know, you'll get lights and darks and like patches of color laying. So that's pretty cool. So we'll just let that. And of course I'll show you these when they're dry. So this is a good one to do too. I really like this tray idea. I stain a lot with trays because when I find them, I just buy a bunch of them. I probably have 30 of these trays because it's just such an easy way to stain. Right at your desk, you know, it keeps things from being too messy. It contains everything nicely. Oh, that looks good. I always like staining my scripting. It really gives that old world feeling. The other thing about this is if you want to start making your mixture lighter or darker, I find working in the bowl like this, it's easier to make those adjustments, you know, versus getting everything set up in the spray bottle. It's kind of hard to go back and change that. And then, you know, when you finish up, you know, I put in the spray bottle. Or if I want to do a lot of spraying, then once I get the mixture the way I want, by sampling it like this, then I'll put it in a spray bottle. But either way, so this is good. Okay. So now let's do, oh, this was, I had pulled this tape out. That was some of the washi tape we made. Since we just used this as a side to glue on, there's no reason why we can't, you can still stain all of that because you're not using the sticky side of it anyway. It's just used as a stabilizer. But we use the masking tape, any of the tapes really. Even if it's the double-sided, if it loses its stickiness, which it shouldn't, but if it does, you know, you still use your glue to put it down, so it's nothing lost. So don't think you can't go back and stain our tapes. Now, let's do, I have a few different ones. Let's do this one. This is the one that we used, the ink pads. For when we use the ink pads with the stencils. So we should get a nice effect with this. I think those inks for the most part were permanent, so shouldn't get a lot of movement. If you use the Tim Holtz ones, you're going to get some movement. So if you don't want that movement, maybe just do a, well, no, because the matte sealer is going to then keep it from staining. But that's nice. Look at that. Really has a nice old world look to it. Once it dries, it's going to be good. Okay, now let me show you. I also pulled out, oh, remember these from last week? Let's do those. These couple from last week. And then also, I pulled out a, let's use one of these photo. Let's do those. These up here. So So I'll show you some other things to do, but right now, so these are using Seth's stains. We were using this on our, we were working with the jean fabric, remember, and I was using this to off print the extra material. And this, I know, all this staining and stuff just does so nicely. You get some really pretty pieces. And see, I just kind of take and pat up some of the extra. That's going to be good when that dries. Let's do this one. Okay. Yeah, that's gonna be good. And it's so, I mean, look at that already. Oh, when it's done, when it's dry. This is, it's such a fun thing to do, to stain like this too, because you don't have to be overly careful. But, you know, this is one of those kind of idle things you can do in the studio when you just want to listen to a podcast, put a movie on. You want to be busy, but you don't want to maybe have to overthink it all. I find that staining is very meditative. So I like to do this when I'm thinking about other projects as well. It keeps me busy, but at the same time, it's not something that I've got to like focus on and really think about, right? So if you keep your little setup like I have here, I get one of these little metal bowls. You can get those at the dollar store, actually in the pet section. It's like a cat's water bowl or something. And just kind of keep things at the ready. A little inexpensive coffee. And these trays. You can also use aluminum trays too. Aluminum doesn't rust the same way. So when I find these little metal, whatever these tin, I don't know. I guess it could be aluminum too, but I definitely like to just kind of, sometimes the water starts puddling a little bit, and I like to just lift it up and flip it over, and that just gets rid of some of the extra, because I don't really like times like those little puddles that dry there. It just depends. So I'm going to show you, oh, let's do this one. That one already has a little staining on it, right? So yeah, it's just one of these kind of things to do when you want to work, but you don't know what you want to do, or you want to think, or you don't want to, you know what I mean. I'm not going to do this top part. It's already got some staining on it, and I like that variation. So I'm kind of going to keep this. I think this was a leftover when I was sopping up Seth's, the eye inks and the licorice, because it always kind of gets this little eggplant purpley kind of look to it. But that is good. I'm just going to tip a little bit of this here. Okay, so that's going to be a really, and then with this interference colors, oh, that's going to be good. That's going to be a great base just to put this up here. That's going to be a great base to, use your words, Robin. Okay, here's some good rusting down here. So I'll show you what I do with the rusting. So I keep trays that don't have a lot of rust on them, and then ones that have a lot of rust on them. So this has a lot of rust on it. So this is going to really activate with the coffee. And I'm going to get, what I like to do is just kind of let it set up on here. Well, you already will see. I'll show you. You're already going to see the difference, because the tannins in the coffee is going to make a darker sort of staining color right off. So see how it's looking a little more green? I don't know if you can pick it up. When these all are dry, I think you can see the difference. See how it looks a little more green? And in the back, look at that. Oh, that's good, because it's picking up the color from the back of it. I'll put a little bit of. This is one of those papers. It's hard to decide which side you want. Yeah, see that rust, it just starts. So we're going to put that down here. Okay. So we'll do this one as well. So you'll see. So this is picking up a lot of the rust. And there probably is some plant fiber on here. But that's where you start getting. So these little rusty pans, keep them. And then do the same technique with them. You don't have to have them on here long. You can just, just lay it down so that you kind of control the color. If you lay it on here a long time, it'll literally go even darker. You can get some blacks and stuff like that, but I love this sort of olivey green that comes from it. Okay. Well, I've run out of paper here, and I think that gives my hands. And then I just let all this stuff dry again. I have a much larger one. So honestly, I let it all dry again. Pack all of my stuff back up on top of it. And just slide it away somewhere in your studio. A lot of times I slide it underneath one of my bookshelves, cases. I have some of those wire racks. I just slide it underneath there because it keeps everything out the way. It keeps all the rust contained. And it's just easy for me to pull it back out and do just like what we're doing right now. It allows me to stain at will, and all this yummy soup. And this is like, in dyeing they call it a dirty pot, so the whole big pot is dirty. Well, I call these my dirty trays. They already have a lot of good stuff on them. And when they dry, you come back to them and you can pick all of this little rusty, staining, tea stainings, the tannins from the teas or the coffees, or from the plant fibers or the avocado, because I do all of that on these trays, and they're just mixing in there, and you can just start getting some really great colors. So if you find these trays, get a few of them, and then keep some of them, unstained, and then some of them where you allow all the rusty bits to build up on them, and then they just become an absolute staining arsenal in your studio, where you just get these amazing papers and prints without having to do the bundling and the pots and keep the steam going and make it an entire operation, which I love that too. Don't get me wrong. I love that, and I do that as well. But because I love that and I want to oftentimes try to do it quickly, I develop, in working with these trays, the idea was to contain things, and then you have all this good stuff on, and you're like, wait a minute, I can use that. So, it's like how ideas develop. So I developed this process out of, just using and staining in my own studio and looking at more convenient ways of doing it. So there we have it. I'm going to let everything dry, and then I'll come back when the papers are dry so we can appreciate them. And yeah, I hope that this little insight into the way I get a lot of incredible colors and diversity in my prints quickly has been helpful. All right, I'll see you guys back in just a few seconds for you. It's going to be probably an hour for me. I want all this stuff to dry up nicely, and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, I'm back several hours later with absolutely dried papers. So just thought I'd show you them dry. This is the washi tape that we made. I just think that staining them, for me and my color palette, just makes everything so much better. And we just have these pieces that are ready for collaging, putting on pages. It's it's just nice. It's fun. It just took something that was just really an off printing and made it so that it could become a page in a book. You know, we could fold it that way. This way, it's ready to, you know, make some cool pages out of. It's also good to rip up and use for collage. So much to be done. And this is just staining, you know, gel print. Of course, I wouldn't do anything with that Max Mara, and, you know, you would do other stuff to it. But it's just kind of cool to be able to take some of your photo transfers and then begin to collage on top of them and build them up. And that staining just gives it a nice organic look. This is using the rust and coffee bath, and you can see where it's quite a bit different than, let's say, the coffee bath, you know. So you really do get these different colors. You can see here where there's a little bit of rust going on, there's a little bit of coffee, and then this page was already stained with something. I think when I was just blotting it in the process when we were working, I had gotten a lot of that staining. But I mean, this is just good. It's ready to go. Either side. I really like it with this, the metallic. Another one. That was just that copier paper that I had done some off printing on my with my stamps, and then staining. Some more. And these are just those papers that we rolled, I braided off the black. And either side is good. You know, it just becomes something that, you know, you start working with. But yeah. So you're just taking some papers that otherwise you would throw away. Now this is the one that was the stencil using the ink pads, but I think because those were Tim Holtz, see how it faded? So you can hardly even see it now. So if you're not using an archival or a permanent ink pad, it's going to fade. But, you know, this paper is still great with the staining on it. You know, that it's good to use. Now this is the deli paper, or the menu tissue really. It's not deli paper because the menu tissue is not waxy. It doesn't have a waxy coat. They call it a dry wax or something, but it doesn't. It takes staining nicely. It takes your paints nicely. But I mean, that color is just so good. And this was just an off print. This is great. I just love the paper stain. Here again, I just like that vintagey kind of quality to them. So, and this was just an off print. I think where I was cleaning the plate or something. And this is the one that I did with the stamping. I mean, I pulled a print with the black paint scripting on the plate. I really like the way this came out. The staining is all so good. I mean, it really just gives off the vibe of like an old document. Like I just could have found this in, you know, a flea market somewhere. So that's that. These papers are ready to go. So we have two things left. We have to put a couple of more images in our book, and we want to work on the cover. So we have two more sessions basically to finish that out. And I think I'm going to use some of my, you know, some of these stained papers for a cover. I think this would be really good. So I'm going to play around, like maybe even, I'll do a collaging of some sorts, but I mean, I think this would be great as a cover too on the book. It just kind of gives it that old world look. And I'm going to cut it out such that I keep this. So anyway, save all these pieces because we're going to need them for our cover, and also we're going to need it for the inside of our book to finish it off. And that's everything. So we're ready for a couple more sessions. We have plenty of time because we have all of December. And yeah, I'll take a couple of weeks off. But in the meantime, we'll have all this finished up. I mean, at the end of December, you know, around Christmas time, I'll take a few, the holidays, I'll take a few days off. But we will have all this done by then. So we've come right in underneath the line with plenty to spare. Alrighty, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this session. Get to staining, put a podcast on or old movie, and just enjoy yourself. Love you guys so much. Have a great week. Happy creating, and I'll see you next Saturday. Bye-bye.